Casino pit boss just broke his 15-year silence, and what he revealed could change how you play forever. According to former casino employees and slot technicians, internal data shows 8 specific machine types that typically run at higher return-to-player percentages, often above 94%, and sometimes even creeping into the mid-90s. At the same time, there are some machines with much worse odds that casinos absolutely love because players bleed money into them. Here's the part that most people never realize. Casinos almost never put the friendlier machines front and center. They bury them in back corners, older sections, and low-traffic areas. Then they promote the flashy new games with giant screens and insane animations, even though those often have some of the worst math on the floor. By the end of this video, you'll know which 8 machines generally give you some of the best odds available on a casino floor, and the 3 you should avoid at all costs. Let's start with a story, because this is where everything changed. Sarah was a weekend player at the Borgata in Atlantic City. She worked as a nurse. After long shifts at the hospital, she loved relaxing on the slots. Over about 8 months, she estimates she lost around $5,000 just hopping on whatever machine looked fun or had an open seat. Then, at a friend's barbecue, she met a former slot technician. He told her something that changed her entire approach. Most machines are terrible long-term, but a handful of specific models have far better payback than others. You just have to know what to look for. 3 weeks later, Sarah walked out of the Borgata with about $300 in profit from a single Saturday session. Not life-changing, but it was the first time she'd ever played for hours and actually walked away ahead. What changed? She stopped picking machines by the graphics and started picking them by the math. According to former slot technicians who worked on these games for years, there are certain models that casinos keep on the floor because they have contracts and they still perform well, but they don't go out of their way to advertise them. They assume only very informed players will look for them. The first machine you need to know about is one you've probably seen before, but the old version, not the new one. Machine number 1, original Wheel of Fortune quarter slots. Older cabinets. Machine number 1 is the original Wheel of Fortune quarter slots, but not the modern high-def versions. We're talking about the older, classic cabinets. Former employees at IGT, the company behind Wheel of Fortune, have said that many of the early Wheel of Fortune quarter machines were programmed with relatively generous payback, often in the low to mid-90s range. That's significantly better than a lot of new flashy video slots that can sit in the mid-80s. When Wheel of Fortune first hit casino floors in the late 1990s and early 2000s, the goal was to build the brand. They wanted people to fall in love with these games, and they did. The machines exploded in popularity, and casinos ordered them by the hundreds. Over time, as licensing costs increased and newer versions were developed, many of the newer Wheel of Fortune variants were released in lower RTP configurations. The math became harsher for players, even though the games looked more impressive. Here's the insider takeaway. A lot of those older, more generous quarter machines still exist, but they're usually pushed into less glamorous parts of the casino. Former casino managers and technicians say that older units often end up in aging sections of the floor, away from the brand-new remodels. They still meet regulatory requirements, they still make money for the house, but they're not the center of attention. So how do you identify the better, older Wheel of Fortune quarter machines? Look for boxy cabinet designs instead of sleek modern curves, simpler, lower-resolution graphics, the older Wheel of Fortune logo styling that looks like it came from the early 2000s or before, cabinets that visually look like they've been around for a decade or more. If it looks like something that could have been on the floor around 2010 or earlier, that's usually what you want. Michael, a regular at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut, learned about this about 2 years ago. He's extremely methodical and keeps detailed records of every casino session. For 6 months, he played almost exclusively on these older Wheel of Fortune quarter machines. Over that time, he cycled about $8,000 through them and got back around $7,400. That's a 92.5% actual return. He still lost money, and he'll tell you that himself. But that's a lot closer to the theoretical 93 to 95% range than most people ever experience on random modern video slots. Now, you might be thinking that's still a loss. And you're right. But compare that to playing a newer low RTP slot, where that same $8,000 might only return $6,800 or less. Just choosing a better version of the same brand can mean hundreds of dollars difference over time. And if you think that's good, machine number 3 has something even more powerful. A game where, with perfect strategy, the house edge gets tiny. But before we get there, we have to talk about a classic that almost every casino player has seen. Before I reveal machine number 2, I want to know something from you. Have you ever felt like the older-looking machines pay better than the flashy new ones? Let me know in the comments, because most players don't understand that this feeling often comes from real differences in how those games are set up. Machine number 2, Blazing Sevens Classic 3-Reel Slots. Machine number 2 is Blazing Sevens, the classic 3-reel version. According to former Bally technicians and casino insiders, many classic 3-reel Blazing Sevens setups are configured in the mid-90% RTP range, often around 95 to 97% depending on jurisdiction and specific version. Here's why simple games like this can be so strong for players. Only 3 reels, a single pay line, straightforward payouts. No overcomplicated bonus features or hidden mechanics. With fewer reels and fewer pay lines, the house edge can't be disguised in layers of complicated features. The math is more transparent, and what you see on the pay table is closer to what you get over the long term. Janet, a retired accountant from Reno, plays Blazing Sevens almost exclusively. She sets a strict $500 weekly budget and records every session in a spreadsheet. Over the past year, her average weekly return has generally fallen between $425 and $475. She's still losing, but she's losing slowly, and she's getting hours of entertainment out of that money. Former casino managers say casinos keep these machines around with fairly generous programming for a simple reason. Younger players tend to be drawn to the bright video slots, not these boring 3-reel games. The casino gets enough volume on the newer stuff that they don't mind offering slightly better odds on the old classics to keep older or more traditional players happy. You'll usually find Blazing Sevens near high-limit areas, in classic slot sections, or tucked near older parts of the floor. They're not exactly hidden, but they aren't plastered all over the marketing either. Now, machine number 3 is where the math gets really interesting. It's technically not a slot machine, but if you're serious about minimizing losses, this might be the single most important machine in the entire casino. Before I reveal it, do me a quick favor. Subscribe and drop a comment with your biggest slot or video poker win ever. These insider insights come from years of conversations with former casino staff, and casinos are already quietly adjusting their floors as more players get educated. Machine number 3 is full pay 9/6 jacks or better video poker. Former casino managers will openly admit this isn't really a slot, but they'll also tell you it's often the best machine in the building for informed players. Here's what 9/6 means. A full house pays 9 coins per coin bet. A flush pays 6 coins per coin bet. On a full pay 9/6 jacks or better machine, the theoretical return to player is about 99.54% when played with perfect strategy. That's not marketing spin. That's math that's been analyzed by independent gaming labs and regulators. The catch? You only get close to that 99.5% return if you play almost perfectly. And full-pay versions are much rarer today than they used to be. Former slot directors say these full-pay machines still exist, but they tend to be tucked away. At bar-top machines near the sports book. At the edges of the casino away from the main slot floor. In locals casinos where serious players hang out. Your job is to check the pay table before you put $1 in the machine. If the full house pays 9 and the flush pays 6, you're looking at a full pay 9/6 machine. If it's 8/5 or 9/5, the RTP drops significantly, often down to 97% or less, which costs you thousands over a large number of hands. David, a former car dealer at the Venetian, decided to learn proper video poker strategy. He spent a couple of weeks using free online trainers and printed strategy charts. Now he plays about 4 hours a week. Over 2 years of regular play, he's down around $340 total. That's hundreds of hours of entertainment for the cost of a few nice dinners. And the only reason his losses are that small is because he sticks to full pay machines and uses proper strategy. Unlike Pure. Slots, skill matters in video poker. You're allowed to use basic strategy cards at the machine. You can literally have the optimal play printed in front of you. Casinos don't care, because the majority of players don't bother. They rely on hunches, lucky cards, or gut feelings, which drags their long-term results down. If you're willing to learn and practice, video poker is mathematically one of the best ways to play in a casino. Now, machine number 4 is controversial, because on the surface, it looks terrible. But under very rare conditions, the math can become surprisingly favorable for high bankroll players. Former slot technicians and public data agree that Megabucks by itself has a low base RTP, typically somewhere in the mid-80s. On paper, that's awful, but Megabucks is a wide area progressive, which means the jackpot can grow to enormous amounts. As that jackpot climbs, the theoretical expected value of each spin changes. When the jackpot gets extremely large, often in the mid-teens of millions of dollars or higher, analysts have calculated that the theoretical expected value can approach or even exceed 100%. In other words, if you could play an infinite number of spins at that exact jackpot level, the math would technically lean in your favor. In reality, almost nobody has that kind of bankroll or lifetime. The odds of actually hitting the jackpot are astronomical, often tens of millions to one. Thomas, a high school math teacher from Henderson, won $2.1 million on Megabucks at Area in 2019. What most people don't know is that he only ever played Megabucks when the jackpot climbed above a level he believed made the bet mathematically reasonable. He tracked the jackpot, set a strict bankroll he was willing to lose, and treated it as a long-shot lottery with better structure. The important point here isn't play Megabucks for profit. The important point is, Megabucks is almost always a bad bet. Only at extreme jackpot levels does the math become theoretically attractive. Even then, you are still almost certain to lose your bankroll in practice. Unless you have a large bankroll, a strong understanding of risk, and you're treating it like buying a lottery ticket with slightly better terms, this is not a game you should be chasing. Now, before we go further into the good machines, I need to warn you about a game that looks almost identical to the 9/6 video poker we just discussed, but quietly cuts your return. Bad machine number 1. Short pay 8/5 video poker. The first bad machine on our list is short pay 8/5 jacks or better. It looks almost exactly like full pay 9/6. Same cabinet, same graphics, sometimes even the same casino section. But on this version, the full house pays 8 coins per coin bet and the flush pays 5. That tiny change destroys the math. The RTP drops from about 99.5% down into the 97% range. Over tens of thousands of hands, that difference adds up to thousands of dollars lost that you wouldn't have lost on a full pay game. So here's the rule. Always check the payable on video poker. Never assume it's full pay just because of the name or the look. If it's not 9/6 for jacks or better, walk away. Now, let's get back to the good side. Machine number 5 is a licensed classic that casinos quietly tried to phase out because it was too generous by modern standards. Machine number 5 is the original Monopoly slots made by IGT in the early 2000s. Former IGT programmers and casino staff have said that many of these older Monopoly versions were configured in the low to mid 90% RTP range. But later Monopoly-branded games, especially after licensing and hardware changed, were often offered in lower RTP setups to preserve profit margins. The key is identifying the older versions. Look for older CRT-style screens with a curved glass look rather than flat LCD or huge HD displays. Cabinet art and logos that look dated, with an early 2000s vibe. Machines located in older, less renovated parts of the casino. Older carpet, dimmer lighting, less modern decor. Patricia, who worked as a casino host at the Tropicana for over a decade, said that management regularly encouraged hosts to steer high-value players to newer games instead of certain older Monopoly units because long-term performance reports showed those older versions holding less for the house. Former slot directors have confirmed that in some casinos, original Monopoly machines sat at the low end of the hold range for branded games, meaning they gave more back to players compared to newer themed slots. Why are they still around at all? Casinos don't always swap out every machine immediately. There are hardware contracts, budgeting cycles, and floor refresh schedules. Some older, more generous Monopoly units survive in older sections that haven't been renovated yet. If you think you've found one, you can sometimes confirm by pressing the Help or Information button repeatedly until you pull up a game info or manufacturing screen. If the manufacturing date is in the early 2000s or early 2010s, there's a good chance you're on one of the older, better versions. Robert, a slot technician who worked in multiple Las Vegas casinos over 12 years, kept personal logs on certain machines. He tracked one older Monopoly unit over 3 months. That single machine took in about $847,000 in wagers and returned around $798,000 to players, roughly a 94.2% actual return, lining up well with its theoretical specs. The bonus game on those older Monopoly machines tends to trigger in a somewhat predictable band, maybe every 120 to 150 spins on average, with typical payouts around a few dozen times your bet. The secret isn't chasing the bonus. It's letting the base game and bonus structure work over time without increasing your bet wildly. But as casinos renovate and refresh their floors, these older, more generous Monopoly units are slowly disappearing. If you enjoy them and you find one that feels like an older configuration, appreciate it now. In a few years, you may not see many of them left. Machine number 6 is another classic three-reel machine that insiders quietly favor for steady play. Quick question before we move on. Out of the machines we've covered so far, which one are you most interested in trying? The older Wheel of Fortune, Blazing Sevens, Monopoly, or full-pay video poker? Let me know in the comments. Machine number 6, Double Diamond Classic 3-Reel Slots. Machine number 6 is Double Diamond, the classic 3-reel version from IGT. Former slot managers and technicians often refer to Double Diamond as an honest machine. It's simple. 3 reels. A single pay line. The Double Diamond symbol acts as a wild and multiplier. No hidden features or complex bonus rounds. Many Double Diamond configurations run in the mid-90% RTP range, often 95% or higher, depending on the particular setup and jurisdiction. Here's why it feels so fair to a lot of players. The Double Diamond symbol not only substitutes to complete winning combinations, it also doubles or quadruples payouts when it appears in winning lines. That creates a lot of medium-sized hits that help keep your bankroll alive. Robert, the former casino manager mentioned earlier, admitted something interesting. During his own breaks, Double Diamond was the only slot machine he played with his own money. He said it was the one game where he felt the math was straightforward enough that he knew exactly what kind of experience he was signing up for. The hit frequency on many Double Diamond setups is decent. You'll see some kind of small win roughly once every several spins. You won't usually see giant jackpots, but you also won't typically blow through a bankroll as fast as you might on a high-volatility bonus monster. Casinos keep Double Diamond on the floor partly because it appeals to traditional players and doesn't take up much processing power or floor space. They also know it doesn't attract as much attention from the thrill-seeking crowd who prefer giant screens and bonus wheels, so they're comfortable letting it run at reasonable RTP settings. You'll often find Double Diamond near entrances, along side aisles, in classic areas, or in spots where the casino wants a reliable, recognizable game for casual players. If you play Double Diamond, one important strategy tip is always bet max coins if the machine's payable requires it for the top jackpot. On many classic 3-reel machines, the highest payouts are only fully available if you're betting maximum credits. If your bankroll can't handle that, consider a lower denomination instead of underbetting a higher one. Now, machines 7 and 8 are where things get really political inside casinos. According to former executives, in some properties they specifically discussed where to place these games to manage how much they gave back to players. Machine number 7, Wheel of Fortune, dollar denomination in high-traffic spots. Machine number 7 brings us back to Wheel of Fortune, but this time we're talking about dollar denomination versions placed in high-traffic areas. Here's the key idea. The same game brand can be offered in multiple RTP versions and multiple denominations. Casinos typically choose higher RTP versions for higher denominations because those games see larger average bets and lower overall spin counts. They're more concerned with steady revenue from big bets than squeezing every fraction of a percent. Former slot directors have said that Wheel of Fortune dollar machines often run with better RTP settings than their lower denomination cousins. For example, while some quarter versions might be configured in the high 80s, certain dollar configurations might be in the low 90s. On top of that, casinos like to create showcase areas, machines near main entrances, walkways, or cashier cages where people can easily see and hear wins. It's smart marketing. If someone hits a solid payout in front of a crowd, it creates the impression that the casino is hot. So what does this mean for you? If you're going to play Wheel of Fortune anyway and your bankroll can handle it, you're often better off. Choosing dollar denomination versions. Prioritizing machines in visible, high-traffic locations instead of hidden corners. You're still playing a negative expectation game, but the house edge is generally smaller than on low-denom, low-RTP setups. Just remember, your bets are larger, which means variance hits harder. Set a strict loss limit before you sit down. For example, you might say, I'm bringing $200 or $300 to this machine. When it's gone, I'm done. Are you starting to see the pattern here? Higher denominations often have better math. Older, simpler machines often have better math. And games placed where the casino wants visible wins can sometimes be configured more generously than the same title hidden away somewhere else. Let me know in the comments if this is surprising to you, or if you've already noticed that your luck seems better on certain machines and locations. Machine number 8, Original Buffalo Penny Slots. Machine number 8 is the original Buffalo slot from Aristocrat, specifically the older penny version. Most players assume penny slots always have the worst odds in the casino, and often that's true. But Original Buffalo is a bit of an exception. According to public regulatory data and industry discussions, many Original Buffalo configurations run around 94% RTP, which, for a penny game, is actually relatively high. Newer Buffalo variants often don't treat players as kindly. Buffalo is a ways-to-win game, usually with 1,024 ways, where wins come from symbol combinations instead of traditional paylines. That structure, combined with its bonus feature, can make it surprisingly steady if you bet conservatively. Linda is what some advantage players call a professional recreational gambler. She has a full-time career, but she takes her casino hobby seriously. She plays Original Buffalo almost exclusively. Over about 3 years, she estimates she's put around $50,000 in total wagers through Original Buffalo machines and is down roughly $3,000 overall. That's about a 94% actual return, very close to the game's theoretical range. Here's how she plays. She always looks for the Original Buffalo logo, not Buffalo Gold, not Buffalo Stampede, not newer spin-offs. Just Buffalo. She plays minimum or near minimum bets that still activate all ways to win, often around 40 to 50 cents per spin. She doesn't chase bonuses by increasing her bet size randomly. The free spins bonus on Original Buffalo tends to trigger roughly every 100 to 120 spins on average, with an average payout somewhere around a few dozen times your bet. On a 50-cent spin, that might mean a typical bonus win of around $15 to $20. That doesn't sound huge, but when the base game is also paying decently between bonuses, the overall experience is relatively gentle compared to high volatility, low RTP modern games. To identify Original Buffalo, look for older cabinets and screens rather than the latest curved or giant LED displays. Make sure the name is just Buffalo, not Buffalo Gold, Buffalo Link, or anything else added. You'll often find them in older penny sections in casinos that haven't fully swapped everything to the latest themes. A former technician who compared data from Original Buffalo and Buffalo Gold versions at the same property found that Original Buffalo returned significantly more to players over time than the newer variant, which leads perfectly into our second bad machine. Bad machine number 2, Buffalo Gold and similar variants. Buffalo Gold and other modern Buffalo spin-offs look like upgrades. They have flashier graphics, more complex bonuses, and even bigger marketing. But for players, the math is usually worse. Many Buffalo Gold-type variants run with noticeably lower RTP settings than Original Buffalo, often several percentage points lower. Over tens of thousands of spins, that difference can cost you thousands of dollars more in losses, even if the games feel similar. So here's the rule of thumb. If you want to play Buffalo, prioritize Original Buffalo with modest bets. Avoid Buffalo Gold and other enhanced versions that are heavily marketed and brand new. Now we need to talk about the absolute worst machine on this list, a game that, according to multiple casino employees and counselors, is heavily associated with problem gambling and big losses. Bad machine number 3, Lightning Link, all versions. The third bad machine is Lightning Link, in basically all of its themes and versions. Lightning Link is one of the most popular slot series in the world. You see it everywhere, huge banks of machines, different themes like Magic Pearl, Happy Lantern, Sahara Gold, and so on. Underneath the art, though, the core engine is the same. Former aristocrat technicians and casino execs have said that many Lightning Link configurations run with RTP in the mid-80s. Combined with its psychological design, that makes it extremely profitable for casinos and extremely dangerous for players. Here's why casinos love Lightning Link. It fills big sections of the floor and gets a ton of traffic. It offers frequent hold and spin features that make players feel like they're always close to a massive win. It looks and sounds exciting. Lots of lights, sounds, and near misses. The problem is the math. The hold and spin feature triggers often enough to keep players hooked, but the average feature payout is usually pretty small relative to what you spend trying to trigger it. If you bet, say, $1.50 per spin, you might need to put in $100 to $150 worth of spins to get a feature that pays back $15 or $20 on average. Over time, that grind adds up to a brutal house edge. Kevin, a real estate agent from Phoenix, fell into what he called a lightning link habit. Over 18 months, he estimates he lost around $87,000 on various lightning link machines. He kept notebooks of every session, convinced he could find a pattern or system. He never did, because there isn't one. Lightning Link, like all regulated slots, uses a random number generator. Each spin is independent. The near misses and frequent features are part of the presentation. They don't mean the game is warming up. Problem gambling counselors have reported that Lightning Link is one of the most commonly mentioned games among people seeking help. The frequent small hits and near misses act like a dopamine trap, creating excitement without actually putting players ahead. The multiple progressives, mini, minor, major, grand, make the game look like it has tons of potential value, but the frequency of those big awards is so low that they don't come close to offsetting the harsh base game. Former slot managers who have reviewed internal performance reports say Lightning Link banks often show significantly higher hold percentages than the casino's overall average, meaning the house keeps a much larger share of every dollar wagered. The bottom line? If you care about your money, Lightning Link is a game you should treat as a giant red flag. Now that you know 8 machines to prioritize and 3 to avoid, we need to talk about how to actually use this information when you walk into a casino. Your complete strategy for using this information. Knowing which machines are generally better is step 1. Step 2 is managing yourself. Here's a practical framework you can follow. First, set a hard loss limit before you step onto the floor. Decide exactly how much you are willing to lose for that session and make peace with that number. Former casino hosts say the number one difference between people who stay in control and people who spiral is simple. The controlled players stick to their loss limit. Second, only play machines that fit your plan. If your goal is to lose more slowly and get more entertainment, focus on classic 3 reel games like Double Diamond and Blazing Sevens. Original Buffalo with modest bets. Older, higher RTP classic machines when you can identify them. Full pay video poker if you're willing to learn proper strategy. Third, understand that even good machines still favor the house. A 95% RTP means that over the very long term, the average player loses $5 for every $100 wagered. It's better than losing $15 on a harsh 85% machine, but it's still a loss. Fourth, never chase losses. This is where people get wrecked. Losing $300 doesn't mean a $600 bet will win it back. Every spin is independent. The machine does not know or care what you've lost. Fifth, take regular breaks. Former casino workers say that players who step away from the floor every hour or so generally lose less money than those who play nonstop. Your decision-making gets worse when you're tired or emotional. Set a timer on your phone. After an hour, stand up, cash out, and go outside or to a quiet area for 10 to 15 minutes. Sixth, always check the pay table, especially on video poker and branded slots. 2 machines that look identical can have different payback settings or paytables. Spend a few seconds verifying 9-6 jacks or better versus 8-5, original Buffalo versus Buffalo Gold, How many credits unlock all ways to win? Seventh, join the Players Club and use your card every time you play. This doesn't change the odds of the machines, but it does give you comps and cashback that effectively reduce your net losses. Even low-stakes players can accumulate points that turn into meals, rooms, or free play. Eighth, be very careful with alcohol while gambling. Casinos offer free drinks for a reason. Alcohol makes you more likely to increase your bets, ignore your loss limit, and chase losses. If you want to drink, consider doing it after you're done gambling, not during. Ninth, avoid casino ATMs as much as possible. The fees are high and the psychological cost is higher. The moment you walk to an ATM after losing your initial bankroll, you've broken your own rules. A better approach is to bring the cash you're willing to lose and leave cards in the room. 10th, understand variance. RTP is a long-term average over millions of spins. In the short term, anything can happen. You might win big on a low RTP machine or lose quickly on a higher RTP one. Don't let one good night convince you that a bad game is suddenly hot, and don't let one bad night convince you that a solid machine is rigged. What casinos are doing about informed players. Finally, let's talk about how casinos respond to players who seek out better machines. Former casino executives and industry observers say casinos are actively replacing older generous machines during floor refreshes faster than they used to, reducing the number of full-pay video poker machines and replacing them with short-pay versions, moving the best machines into less obvious areas, or mixing them with weaker ones so they're harder to spot at a glance. Some player tracking systems can also identify patterns. If you consistently play only high RTP games and avoid the worst machines, you may find that your comps aren't as generous as those offered to players who lose quickly on harsh games. Casinos prefer to reward the people who generate the most profit. None of this means you can't enjoy gambling. It just means you should treat it like any other entertainment expense and use every bit of information available to stretch your money as far as possible. Remember, the house always has an edge. Some machines are less predatory than others. Knowledge, discipline, and limits are your best tools. If you found this helpful, hit like, subscribe, and comment which of these machines you've seen in your local casino, and if you've ever noticed a difference in how they play. And once again, a quick responsible gambling reminder. This content is for entertainment and educational purposes only. No machine or strategy eliminates the house edge. Never gamble with money you can't afford to lose. And if gambling stops being fun or starts affecting your life, please seek help from a licensed professional or a problem gambling helpline in your region. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.